Welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I'm your host Atul Raj from the bestemailmarketer.com, and today we have Steve Anderson with us. Steve, thank you so much for joining and welcome to the podcast.
Tool, thanks for having me. I look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, so for our listeners who don't know you, can you tell them who you are and what do you do?
Yes, as maybe if you're watching this, you can see I've been around a long time. So I have a long career in the insurance industry, selling insurance to businesses and individuals for the last, since 99, whatever that number is, a few years. I've actually done consulting in that industry, helping insurance agents understand new and emerging technology and how they could use it in their business. Today, I still do writing, speaking, consulting around technology. And now, obviously, I say obviously, but AI is kind of a big topic. So I'm really interested in that. And actually, and working on, a couple of other books. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, by the way, you are a best selling author of a book called Bezos Letters, right?
Correct.
So, what that book is all about?
So, in my consulting, and again, technology, and again, we all know that technology continues to develop rapidly, maybe more so now than for a long time. But I started asking the question, is the biggest risk businesses take not taking enough risk? And again, coming out of the insurance industry, that's pretty counterintuitive because that industry is all about reducing risk, mitigating risk, transferring risk. And with technology continuing to develop, companies no longer can sit back and wait and figure out, okay, well, let's wait a few years to see if this AI thing is a big deal or not. So I started looking at companies that had once been very successful and are no longer here. And I looked at companies that have been successful and continue to be successful and really wanted to start understanding why. What's the difference between those two types of companies? Came across Amazon, and specifically the letters to shareholders that Jeff Bezos wrote. So Amazon went public in 1997, sold stock. That first 1997 letter to shareholders that Jeff Bezos wrote kind of set the groundwork for Amazon literally for the next years, even up to today. And as I started reading those letters, 97, 98, 99, 2000, I realized there were threads through those letters that actually really interested me or intrigued me. Those threads were, how did Bezos grow Amazon? Now, a lot of shareholder letters are touting the company and great things they did and profits, and he did some of that. But he was more of really a teacher. How did he do it? What are the things that he did? And so those threads became principles. So the full title is The Bezos Letters, 14 Principles to Grow Your Business Like Amazon. And 14 is a lot. I know that. So we organized them into 4 cycles: test, build, accelerate, and scale. And I believe any business, startup, solopreneur, or larger business that's been around a while, are always going through those cycles. They're testing an idea, they're building on that success, they're accelerating that growth, and then they're scaling up to however big they want to be. And so that's what the book is about. And yeah, as you said, it's had some success and kind of surprising to me still. I feel like it was a simple idea that I guess nobody else had done. But anyway, so yeah, that's what the book is about. And actually, I would say you're based in India. And so there are actually 4 language translations in India. So what I call India English, whatever that is, but English, and then 3 dialects. And frankly, I can't pronounce the names of what they are. So I won't even stumble with that. But yeah, it's actually been translated into 21 languages. And so that's pretty amazing to me.
Okay, so you call Jeff Bezos the master of risk. So, how can someone also become a little bit close to, master of risk?
Yeah. And I think here, I just always like to remind listeners, people who are watching, Bezos started out like everybody else. He started out in a garage in a house in Bellevue, Washington, where he took books that he had gone to a warehouse because people had bought them, went and got the books, brought them back, put them in packages, and drove them to the post office and mailed them out. He started on his hands and knees, like
Mhm.
literally everybody else. Now, people don't remember that. They see what Amazon is today. And that's part of what intrigued me is, okay, how did he do that? Lots of businesses start, many fail. What's the difference? So I think risk taking is a key component of how Amazon actually grew. And I call it smart risk because it's not willy nilly, who cares? Let's throw something up on the wall and see if it works. It's very intentional and very strategic. And that thought process is still part of Amazon today. So he built that into the culture. And so, yes, the types of experiments you'll make as a startup company are different than what Amazon can do today. And you still need to take risks and you need to figure out, okay, how do we manage the risk? How do we make this work for us and not kill the company by taking really stupid risks? And kind of the core of this whole idea, and in fact, the first principle is encourage successful failure. And now you don't hear those two words together very often. And the idea behind it is Bezos
Mhm.
said, if you're going to serve the customer, you have to invent on their behalf. And if you're going to invent, you have to do experiments. And if you're going to do experiments, you're going to fail because not every experiment works. In fact, most don't work. So, how do you experiment, fail, learn from the failure, take that learning and then into the next experiment? So, work on making them successful. And then once you have that success, and
Mhm.
then you can build on that success and then accelerate that success, et cetera. So that's really the idea behind risk taking. And for a lot of business, in fact, I would say for most businesses, failure's typically not celebrated. And I'm convinced that employees aren't afraid of failure, but they are afraid of the consequences of failure. And
Mhm.
so again, that's a core value at Amazon. Experimenting, testing, failing, learning, doing it all over again. And they've done that for years.
Okay, so what are the Amazon's key customer experience pillars and how can a small business apply them?
Early on, so one of the other, that first 1997 letter, there were several sections in it. One of those sections was what he called, we will obsess over customers. And that is one of my principles, customer obsession. It's in the build cycle. And what he said was, I don't believe customers will ever want higher prices, less selection, and slower delivery. So those actually are the three customer pillars. The everything store, so wide selection. So he started with books. That's kind of what people remember, but he never intended to stop at books. So he kept adding new, what they called stores at Amazon, but new the videos, the music, the physical stuff. And
Yeah,
they
yeah.
just kept adding that stuff on. So wide selection, lower prices. So wide selection brings people in, lower prices keeps them there and gets them to buy. And then fast delivery helps change behavior from I need to go to the store and look and find this thing to I can get it in 2 days or less. And now it's probably one day, maybe a few hours, depending on where you live. I can get it. I don't have to go to the store. And so that whole idea of those three pillars, wide selection, low prices, fast delivery, are the customer pillars and really have built what Amazon is today because it's convenient.
Mhm. Okay, so how can a founder know if they are actually customer obsessed or just saying they are?
Well, customer obsession, excuse me, customer obsession. And I always say every business knows they need to take care of customers. That's, of course, it's customer service, customer focus, customer journey. Customer obsession is a different way of thinking about it. That word obsession to me, it's just really interesting, and it still is today. I've talked about it a lot. But at Amazon, customer obsession is knowing the customer's wants, needs, and desires so deeply that they can invent what the customer will want, even when they don't know they will want it. And again, I mean, I think of the Kindle ebook reader.
Uh-huh.
Amazon didn't invent the Kindle or the ebook. There were ebooks readers out there before Kindle. What Amazon did do is think about the customer and their experience. And so the goal of the Kindle was any book ever published, purchased, downloaded, and start reading in 60 seconds or less. Now, before the Kindle, the major way you put books on an e-reader was a cable to your computer. And you had to go to your computer, you had to download the book, you had to move it to the device. They built in wireless connectivity at no additional cost. So that goal of 60 seconds or less, any book in the world you can start reading, they hit it. And obviously it's been a success. Now, again, they invented a whole new way. They've innovated along the way to different types of Kindles, smaller, more memory, and even the Scribe, a bigger one, but now you can write on it.
Uh-huh.
So invention is what starts things, innovation is what keeps them going. So focusing on the customer and not, how do I want to say this? Always having the customer in mind. In fact, Bezos is known for in meetings having an empty chair for the customer. Again, a visual reminder that there is a person out there that we are building whatever it is that meeting's about for. And we need to know who they are, what they want, and how we can make things better and easier. And it's what I call friction.
Uh-huh.
And as a business owner, do you actually know where your customers experience friction with you? And I would say most don't because they don't go through it. They don't buy, they don't experience it. And so that's one way to start thinking more about the customer is do a secret shopper, have somebody that's never bought from you before buy and give you feedback on the experience. Where did they stop? What was the friction point? Those are the little things that customer obsession will force you to do to make that experience better and better. And again, the result of that is the customer sticks with you longer.
Okay, so what is one practical experiment any businesses can run this week to move toward customer obsession?
Mine's going a lot of different directions.
Don't worry.
Well, let me say it this way. One of the biggest risks a business faces is their success. So every business starts with an idea,
Uh-huh.
a new product, a new platform, a new service that they think solves a problem for a customer. What happens too often is they have success in that initial idea, and then they start protecting that idea and innovating and improving it and not thinking about what's the next big idea? What else are people going to do? I think about, well, I'll use Blockbuster, right?
Uh-huh.
Retail stores go and rent originally VCR tape movies, then they did transition for a little while into CDs. And they never could get out of the idea that people would come to a store. And then Netflix came along and started experimenting, right? They didn't come up with subscriptions at first. They tested it. They were selling DVDs, but they realized they could do it through the mail. And so that was a new way. People didn't stop wanting to watch movies, but they changed how they accessed the movie. And Netflix was the one of the first streaming services. And in fact, Netflix went to Blockbuster and said, "You should buy us. Streaming's the future." And Netflix said, "Oh no, we don't need you. We're the top of the game." At their height, Blockbuster had 9,000 stores worldwide. There's one left here in the US. And it's really more of a tourist attraction than in a store. But that's the idea of if you're not continuing to experiment and test new ideas, That's the process your company will go through. Now, it may take 20 years, may take a long time,
Yeah.
but that's the idea behind experimenting and again, customer obsession. And that's really an example of how the principles stand on their own, but they also work together. So customer obsession leads you to invent on behalf of the customer. That leads you to new products and services and longer term success.
Okay, so we
Now,
should
I will
always be.
say, let me, I was just thinking about your question. There are things Amazon did to help them make sure the experiments were as successful as can be. Let me describe one tool. It's called a 6-page memo. So early on, 2004, Bezos sent an email around to his senior leadership team, top folks in the company, and said, no longer will a slide presentation be allowed in our meetings. PowerPoint, Keynote, none of those. And he said, because people hide behind bullet points. They haven't really thought through what they're proposing. So he said, we will have a written document about the decision you're asking the team to make. Originally called a 6-page memo, now is more referred to as a working backward document. We work backward from the customer to the product platform service. But it literally is a physical written out memo, and it's not sent out to the people in the meeting beforehand. It is passed out at the meeting, and everybody spends the first part of the meeting reading the memo. And that might be 10 minutes, it might be 30 minutes, depending on the complexity of the decision. In that memo, the team has first written a press release that's going to be used when that product they're proposing is released to the customer. It's a list of FAQs. What are the common questions they think that team will ask about the product? What do we know? What don't we know? What skills do we have? What skills don't we have? We'll have to hire for. Why do we think this could be successful? Once that everybody reads the memo, and why pass it out at the meeting? Because Bezos said executives are busy. They say they're going to read it and they won't. So we'll take study hall at the first part of the meeting. And then the meeting opens up for discussion, deeper questions, deeper discussion, but literally everybody's on the same page. So that's the first benefit. But let's say they approve, they move forward, and it's a failure. It doesn't do what they thought it was going to do. Now they have a document to go back to and say, what didn't we understand correctly? What assumptions did we make that we found out were not accurate? Right? They had a game plan, a playbook to figure out what went wrong and correct it the next time. So that's the two parts of minimizing the risk of experiments.
That makes sense. Okay, so for our listeners who want to connect with you, get some help from you, or read your book, where can they go?
Well, the book, surprisingly, is available on Amazon. And, all 3 editions, physical, ebook, and audiobook. The book website is thebezosletters.com. And my main social platform is LinkedIn. So you can search for me there, Steve Anderson Bezos or Steve Anderson Insurance. You should find me. Connect with me. Let me know you listen to this, and I'd be glad to connect with you. And I publish some newsletters and information on LinkedIn, about some of these topics where I can go deeper.
Awesome, Steve. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, and it was really great having you here.
Atul, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.